Welcome to the new sound of online radio. Welcome to the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network. 'Cause you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. A mix of today's hits and hard-to-find favorites, combined with the most entertaining and intriguing talk anywhere. This is your sound. This is the sound of Universal Broadcasting Network at UBNradio.com.
Going behind the scenes with Hollywood's power players. Real Hollywood Live with Ben and Reba. Starts now.
You're watching Real Hollywood Live, broadcasting from world-famous Sunset Gower Studios in, today, hot Hollywood, California.
And I hear it's going to get hotter this week.
Absolutely, because you're back.
Aw, shucks. So welcome. We're here every Tuesday at 1 p.m. on UBN Radio Channel 1. And you can find us for rebroadcasts anywhere you want go to realhollywood.com.
No, wouldn't it be realhollywoodlive.com?
Well, it's after the fact, so I wasn't sure. But yeah, I guess you're right. realhollywoodlive.com, because that's the title of the show.
Yeah, because you were gone, I kept saying, and we're not dead. Though I must tell you, my husband said the show wasn't as good without you.
I'm a good foil.
Yes, you are. He actually, for a man who doesn't know me, he really does. So I know you're going to ask me who's on the show today, right? This time I know.
You do?
Yes,
Aww.
because I happen to like these names. They're easy in my brain. Last week I couldn't tell you who was on the show because one was from Romania with a name that long and one was from Germany with a name that wide. So here we are. Today...
See what happens when I go away?
Yes. Ira Stephen Behr. Wait till you meet this guy.
Well, that's a good name.
Yeah, and
I wish my name was that good for Hollywood.
Yeah, well, he's definitely connected. Okay. And then I grabbed this woman from New York. I found her.
Really? Like walking on the street and you're like...
No, I found her on Facebook, looked at her career and said, "Are you ever coming to Hollywood? If you come, please do our show." And
this
her
is
name,
like the old days of being discovered.
Yes, I discovered Nancy Cohen, but she's already famous without me.
Okay.
So what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I thought it's a very interesting time because there's lots of campaigning going on these days, and not just with the Republican candidates, but actually here in Hollywood as we're starting to plow into award season.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you know more about small movies.
I know small movies, and so I'm privy to what's the campaigning going on for like the SAG Awards and the Indie Spirit Awards. You, on the other hand, you're a little bit higher up. You're already getting
Oscar stuff, yeah. Actually, I'm really embarrassed. I think I should put it out there. I've gotten these notices from the studios so I can get DVDs, and I don't know where I put them. So I'm going to just have to call the studios and say, "Hi, I'm still here," and maybe you'll just send me the DVDs.
So that's the change in demographics. Like, we're getting solicitation for SAG Awards, but they're actually sending us Q&As of like, how do you watch digitally? They're doing surveys, so I don't think we're going to get DVDs. They're trying to get us to come to theaters right now, and if that fails, then we're going to get the digital links because we're not quite DVD worthy. No,
it's because the Academy is so old. It has nothing to do with who's worthy. The Academy is really trying to change their demographics, and they keep inviting younger people and women, and but we're still run by a group of old men. We are. And
they only get older.
Yes, though we do have Cheryl Boone Isaacs was just reelected for her next term as the president of the Academy,
and isn't really Dawn Hudson still quite high?
Yeah, but she's a paid person.
Oh.
Okay, she's our director. But
I guess women don't count if you pay them.
If you ask women, they'll tell you they don't count. No, I have to say something about being a woman and being paid, is that when I started in Hollywood, which I write about in my book, by the way, which is doing quite well. I want to thank everybody for buying my book. And if you see me on the street and you have the book, stop me. I will sign it. But I want to get back to this thing. I was always paid fairly because I was doing what the guys were doing, and there wasn't any difference between my being a woman or a man.
No, I agree with that. And I think that nowadays, too, like almost every event I've gone to for a film that's campaigning, one of the biggest draws is they have the actresses there doing Q&As. So I don't know that there's a stigma of like more male or female. I think it's obviously, I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but I'm saying in my experience that
Well,
there's a lot of great opportunity for women as well.
Darling, your experience is very limited. I love you
No,
dearly.
I'm only 40. I'm just a babe in the womb.
We're not talking age. Remember, I only said my age once, and after that, my lips are sealed. But they're not sealed about what we're going to do on the show today because
Well,
you know,
let's get
you
into
said
it.
everybody's talking. Well, I think they're talking about television right now because the Emmys are coming up next month. Actually, I looked it up. It's September 20th,
Okay.
which is not bad. And the reason I love television this year is that the shows have been marvelous, and they have provided me with some guilty pleasures. And I'm not talking about reality program. I'm talking about wonderful television series that we can't find in the movie theaters. And I want to preface this by saying I have been screening films for a weekend, and nothing has grabbed me like the 3 documentaries I saw. There isn't one film that says, hi, I'm Oscar worthy. So obviously it's a little still too early, but the television season this year has been absolutely marvelous. And who do we owe it to? Well, we owe it to the writers. I don't care what the actors and the actresses say. We owe it to the writers because let me tell you something. After working in Hollywood for so many years, the written word is what runs the film world. And are we lucky today? Because boy, do we have a writer. I'm looking directly at him, and I want to recommend. I do want to recommend you anyway, but I want to introduce you to Ira Stephen Behr, and we're going to applaud you for just sitting in that chair. Let me tell you about this guy. I mean, he's amazing. Ira Stephen Behr. I love your name. Okay. I fell in love with you because you are writing and the co-executive producer on Outlander. But my co-host knows you well from the Star Trek world. How does a guy who spent 8 years in the Star Trek world end up writing a love story set in Scotland in what, the 1700s?
The 1800s, yeah, 1745.
Clearly, it's called talent.
Oh, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
So, how'd you get the gig? I mean, how did they look at a sci-fi guy and say, oh, you're perfect for romance?
Well, can't you tell? I mean, well, it was easy, you know. It's Ron Moore, who I worked with for 6 years in Star Trek, in the Star Trek universe. We were meeting, coming up with ideas for shows we wanted to do together, and at the same time, he had been given Outlander to read, and he had sold the show to Stars, and on the day that it happened, he called me up and he said, "Hey, I know this isn't something we've been talking about, but do you want to read a 700-page book and tell me if you find it interesting?"
And did you?
So I said, yeah, I have like 5,000 books at home. I read constantly. So
And did you read all 700 pages
I read
before you
all
gave an
700
opinion?
pages, yeah. It's the third book, if we get a third season pickup, is 900 pages. So we're all looking forward to 900 pages.
But I want to go back, and I want everybody to know, how did you get started? Were you a kid that just loved writing, or did they have to put a gun to your head to write?
I was a kid. I grew up in the Bronx, so I was always the oddball. I still have a lot of friends. My Bronx boys, I'm still in contact with people I went to kindergarten with. So I was always a bit of the oddball. I was always interested in movies. I remember as a kid, this is like the biggest nerd thing anyone can ever say, but I used to dream about getting an adult library card so I could go and get out of the kids section and read like the real books. So yeah, I never wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, an Indian chief. I always wanted to do something creative, and like everyone, I was the Artful Dodger in camp, and I thought, that was kind of fun. And then I thought about directing, but I was always writing. And then I got serious about it. I studied with some amazing people. Edward Albee, the playwright, Israel Horovitz, Jerome Charon, the novelist. They gave me a lot of validation. And then I got a scholarship to go to Brandeis University for playwriting, and for reasons that are too humorous to mention, I decided not to go. Partly because I didn't want to wind up an academic, which is what I was afraid would happen.
And you went where, to Hollywood?
I went to Europe first. I had to like totally destroy my life. I had to take that, and I broke up with the girl I was seeing. I quit my job. I bummed around in England and in Amsterdam and all kind of places. And then I came back to New York. I had nothing. And my parents kept saying, you know, why don't you go to freaking Hollywood already? Why are you wasting time? And my cousin was out here just... he was writing some TV, and he kept saying, you know, why are you wasting time with the theater? I was kind of working with Israel Horovitz as his assistant during a play he was doing with Diane Keaton, and someone stole Diane Keaton's boots out of her dressing room, and the producers wouldn't pay her whatever it was, the $200 to reimburse her for the boots. And I remember thinking, why am I in this kind of like, I gotta watch my language. You know, why am I bothering with this when they won't even give their star $200 to repair for his shoes? I said, screw this. I'm going to Hollywood.
Did you?
Well, and clearly the producers stole the boots.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is that what I don't understand, I mean, I understand it from my own career, is that you got to know somebody. Was it your cousin that opened the door?
What happened is, no, my cousin...
He's from the Bronx. Obviously, his cousins were very involved in the financing of films.
Actually, my first actual job came about because someone my cousin knew wanted to prove that he was a mover and shaker more than my cousin, and got me into a room to pitch, not got me a job. All I was able to do was go in when you could still go in. The business has changed quite a bit. Freelance writers can't go in and pitch episodes to the TV shows. You have to start now as an assistant, as a writer's assistant. You need typing skills, which I didn't have. But anyway, that's how I got my first gig. So,
okay, let's talk about his series.
Well, and I was just going to ask, like, the years you spent in Europe and playing around, do you feel that those life experiences have played a big role in your career path versus had you just gone to Brandeis and followed the academic?
With that, who knows what the path not taken? But I even back then, I was really concerned that I would claim I would be writing plays or whatever, but being a teacher and probably a professor, I know me. I need to have the sword of Damocles hanging over my head to get jobs done. So I think I did make the right choice. But in terms of the biggest life experience, and I'm not kidding, it sounds like it's a joke, but whether it's Star Trek, the 24th century, the 1700s, whatever, it all goes back to the Bronx. And that living, you know, hanging out on street corners and hanging out at the pizza joint and hanging out at the schoolyard with 20 guys, there was the group dynamic, the male bonding. When I say male bonding, we also had women or girls who hung out with us, so it's the same thing. You know, their bonding, I found it absolutely fascinating. And I think if someone, not that anyone ever will, but if anyone looked through the episodes I've written over my career, they will see that friendship, actually, and the interaction of people and how, not the family, but the faux family is what this show is about, what all my work is about.
But how did you get into the Star Trek world? I mean, that's a very classy, closed world.
Well, this is even funnier. It was not something I was looking for. I had, I'll make this as quick as possible. I had met Terry Nation. Terry Nation is not a name that's known, but he helped create the original Doctor Who, and he did the Daleks, which are the big, exterminate. He created the Daleks back in the early 60s. He came to L.A. after years as being this top English writer and was paid a ton of money and basically could not get anything done. And he'd sit in his office drinking wine, and I think he was drinking Conundrum wine.
Yes.
And he had nothing to do. So he and I was a little pisher, and he said, we tried to come up with an idea for a show to do together. He was that desperate that he'd say, come on, let's work on an idea. So we came up with an idea. We wrote a treatment for it. It never got anywhere. I totally forgot about it. And then 5 years later or 3 years later, whatever it was, some executive at Paramount read it somehow. It must have been sent by my agent. I can't even remember. And suddenly they were bleeding writers at the Next Generation. People were being fired left and right. It was hellacious. They just did a documentary that I was interviewed for about how crazy it was there. I had a meeting in the second season and turned them down. I turned them down in the Paramount commissary. I said, I'm not doing this show. Writers can't go down to the set. There's this, that, the other thing. It's like, goodbye, thank you, but I'm not going to do it. And then in the third season, a couple of friends of mine wound up on the show, and they asked me again to come on the show. I said, okay, did it for a year, quit.
That's what I was going to ask you. Where does the balls come from? In this town, Hollywood doesn't forgive. Hollywood is tough to get in. You're in and you walk away. Come on.
I was just talking about this, believe it or not. This is very funny, but 2 days ago, I was talking to my agent about this very topic, and I have found that, the only thing that people really understand and respond to, whether good or ill, I'm just telling a fact, is strength. And the only way, I've tried to live my life. There's a line from a Sam Peckinpah movie, all I want to do is enter my house justified. That's the most important thing in my life. Not what people think about me, not this, how I feel about myself. Do I feel good about my decisions? And if you're able to struggle to kind of live that way, it's easy to say no if it's a situation that you really don't believe in or you're not comfortable with. And then you just have to believe that if you have talent, they'll find you again, or someone else will find you, or whatever it is. But there is nothing more soul-sapping than trying to be creative in an environment or in a situation where you don't feel good, where you're not proud of the work. So it's easy.
Plus, since nobody ever turns them down, they probably threw them for a loop, and they then wanted you even more.
I trust you. I'm not the only person who turns down things in Hollywood. People turn down things in Hollywood.
I turned down something. I turned down My Left Foot for the Weinsteins, and Harvey never forgave me. Never and never would use me again. And I created his original EPKs. I did all his first early movies. And so that's why when I asked you, I'm asking from inside me because I never got a chance. But you went to Deep Space Nine. Was that part of the family?
Yeah, what happened was I went off. I quit, I remember, and they offered me a 2-year deal for the Next Generation. I was on vacation, actually, in Hawaii, and my agent said, they gave me a huge money bump, and he said, they said that you will never turn this deal down in a million years. I said, tell them I'm not coming back. And that was it. So then I pitched a film that I wanted to write, that I was passionate about. I got into development hell for 2 years. They were going to film it. Big star signed for it. As soon as the big star signed for it, they kicked me off the project after working on it for 2 years, bringing in a bigger writer. He put in a draft. The star walked, finished that. Anyway, while all it was going on, my buddy who was on TNG kept taking me to Dodger games just to keep a hand in, asking me what I was doing, how my life was going, and all that stuff. And one night at the Dodger game, he said, "We're doing a new series. Here's a Hollywood story that is unbelievable but true." He said, "We are doing a new series. It's going to reflect your sensibilities more than the next generation. If you come back," and I know it didn't end well. He was there. He goes, "But if you come back, remember, these shows go for 7 years. If you come back, I'm going to leave the show in 2 years, and starting in season 3, I'm handing over the show to you, and you will run the show for 5 years." Now, that's a huge statement to make before the pilot was even filmed, before the pilot was even written. He just had a treatment. And anyone else in Hollywood, I would have said, "You're full of it." But Michael Piller was a man of his word. He has since passed away at a very young age, unfortunately. But he was true to his word. And I came back, and it was the best decision I ever made. And I was there for 7 years. My agents begged me after the third season to quit, to do something else. They go, "This isn't helping your career anymore. You know, you've done it. You've done the show now 3 years. Why are you staying?" And I kept saying to them, "You don't understand. I have to see how it ends. You don't understand. I have to see how it ends." So we did 170 episodes.
Well, one of the things that I found fascinating before we get to Outlander is that the description of writing for Deep Space Nine is that it was gritty, darker, with humor. And reading that and reading all about you, I thought that was you. That Ira Stephen Behr was gritty, dark, but definitely had a humorous streak.
It's like the sex scenes in your book.
Yeah. Yes.
I got to read the book.
Oh, yes. It's very steamy.
Should I talk about it with your husband?
Was that a fair?
Has he read the book?
Read it. Starred in it.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm European, right?
Yeah.
They know things.
Yes.
We just don't know.
Was that a good description of you?
I think I flustered her a little.
Yes.
Well, isn't that part of the job?
Yes. Do you want me to
I don't
repeat
know.
it?
Am I supposed to make that assessment? I don't
Is
necessarily
it a fair
think so.
observation?
I don't. They did a documentary once, one of the many docs on Star Trek that I appeared in, that Shatner, Bill did the narration for, and they told me it was about science, the science of Star Trek. I swear to God. So I did this thing. They interviewed me for 3 hours at another show I was on. It was, I wasn't on the show anymore. And then it came on the air, and I watched it, and I swear to God, what they said was, and then came Deep Space Nine, and Ira Stephen Behr, and he ruined Star Trek. He killed it. It was so dark and so depressing and miserable that the fans turned away. And I go, wow, I don't remember it like that. It's like. There's this whole idea of Gene Roddenberry's 24th Century where people are perfect and all that stuff. That didn't jive for me when I was on Next Gen, which is why I left. But all I wanted to do was go, okay, here's this theory that's been posited by Roddenberry about the 24th century. Let's examine it. What does it mean there's no war, no money, that no one has conflict? Well, maybe that's true on Earth, but Deep Space Nine is supposed to take place at the very, very farthest end of the frontier. As I had the lead character say, it's easy to be a saint in paradise. But out here, stuff gets real. And so that's all I was trying to do. I was just trying to examine it. It's still the most optimistic goddamn show in the history of television, because it says in the 24th century we're still recognizable human beings, and we still, care about the same things we care today. So I don't know how it could be dark. I pray humanity gets to the 24th century in reality.
So of everybody out there, are you your harshest critic?
I would say, in terms of my work, I am very, very, very harsh on myself.
Do you, I know a lot of actors who will not watch themselves on screen. Do you watch your shows after they're completed, or do you ever look backwards in the past?
That doesn't, I watch them through cuts and so I see it so often, and then I'm at the final mix, and you're watching it when we're doing the final sound mix, so watching it on TV, it depends. If my kids are in town, if there's a reason for it, I'll watch them on TV. By the time they air, I know them backwards and forwards. Do I ever go back and watch it? No. Will I? I keep saying if they ever put DS9 on Blu-ray, I might just, because the DVDs were murky for a whole bunch of reasons.
Okay, I know you're on your way to Scotland, and I was so thrilled that we could grab you before you left. Will you give us anything from the second season of Outlander? I won't tell anybody if you would just tell me something.
Well, the second season of Outlander is going to be incredibly like the first season of Outlander, except very different.
Wow, we got to watch that.
Well, let me ask you this as we leave you for a commercial break. If you weren't writing, did you ever figure out what you could do if you weren't a writer?
As an idiot savant, I can tell you that I would be living in a box on the street and be lucky if at the end of the day I could even find the box.
Well, perfect. Well, with that,
you have to tell them, wait a minute. Oh, we want to drink a toast to you.
We want to drink a
I
toast
got
to
to
you.
tell you
I want to
something.
drink a toast to you. How's that?
I
Perfect.
love
Thank you.
that.
Well, and
Thank
with
you.
this,
And to Kim.
to Kim,
To this gentleman who I do not know.
That's Kurt.
who I wasn't-
Kurt.
Hi.
and
toast
thank
you.
you to Wagner Family of Wines, who gave us this wonderful conundrum,
Thank you.
Cheers.
and to barkeeper of Silver Lake, who creates the great stemware that you've seen on Mad Men, and you can enjoy at your house.
But you have to tell them how to find Ira, please.
All right. Well, look on screen, and
you-
you're going to see everything you need to know of how to follow Ira on Facebook. No.
No? You don't want to be followed?
I'm not on Facebook.
Website?
I'm not on Twitter. Twitter. I don't have a website.
So you mean
I
you're
get- I
a
get
man
it.
of mystery? We
No.
can't find you. Oh, I'm so glad we dragged you in on
Vanity, vanity, all is vanity.
IMDb.
IMDb.
Follow Ira's work.
Yes,
on
on
IMDb.
IMDb. There you go.
We're going to be back after these commercial breaks.
Conundrum has been turning winemaking on its head for 25 years. Conundrum White is the original white wine blend from California. Pair this exotic, versatile wine with everything from Asian cuisine to tacos. Conundrum Red is rich, full-flavored, and balanced, the perfect complement to dishes like pasta pomodoro, fajitas, and barbecue. Drink it slightly chilled, perfect for summer. You'll find Conundrum Red and White wines at your favorite restaurants, wine shops, or supermarket. Go to WagnerFamilyOfWine.com. Again, that's WagnerFamilyOfWine.com. Find your wine, find your adventure.
Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches is Reba Merrill's intriguing look at hidden Hollywood. Find out what movie stars are really like in this behind-the-scenes Hollywood tell-all. The story of Reba's extraordinary life interwoven with an insider's look at achieving fame and success in the entertainment industry. A must-read. Buy Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches at RebaMerrill.com, Amazon.com, or ask for it at fine bookstores. Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches. You'll love it.
Barkeeper in Silver Lake has the finest cocktail shakers and vintage glassware and barware from the mid-century to new. And let's not forget about Barkeeper's unique spirits, 150 different kinds of bitters, and their unique gifts. In fact, Barkeeper provided a lot of the vintage barware for Mad Men. BarkeeperSilverLake.com. Don't wait to visit their store or their website at BarkeeperSilverLake.com. It's your very own Barkeeper catalog for unique gifts.
Going behind the scenes with Hollywood's Power Players. Real Hollywood Live with Ben and Reba. starts now.
Well, to me, the most difficult thing to do is to write, whether it's a blog, a poem, a script. And we are so lucky today because not only did we have Ira, the writer, but we have Nancy Cohen, and she has done it all. She's a filmmaker, a writer specializing in humor and human relations or interests or sex, I don't know, everything, political justice, and I want to welcome Nancy Cohen. Actually, you have to forgive me. I dragged her off of the internet. I have been following her, and I kept saying, if you're ever going to be in Los Angeles, please, please come and do the show. And she actually showed up.
Well, that's great. And what reason did you have to come out here?
My aunt conveniently has dementia, and I come and visit her. So that's
Well, good for us, but I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, you know,
But
there's
put us
something.
on your list when you come back. Well, what I
Absolutely.
want to know is, where did your career start?
Where did it start?
Was it just that you started writing?
I think the affliction happened because my father was a pinch-hitting rabbi in a small town in Pennsylvania, and he also had a movie theater. So it started trying to build inspiration through entertainment at a very young age.
Did he ever show Yentl?
Of course, but not there.
Oh.
Yeah.
When did you decide to make films, and how tough? Because this is the blessed boy who just walks into things and it happens. You're making documentaries, and I have to admit, and you know this too, that it's probably the toughest thing in the world to do. To get funding, if you get funding and you get it made, oh my God, how are you going to get it released? Who's going to distribute it? Tell us your story, Nancy. How'd you do it?
Well, it helped that the first person I made a film about committed suicide, so people really wanted to see the film, and I was able to show it at something called the IFP. Do you know that? The IFP. And I got a lot of attention. It went to a lot of film festivals. And you get a distributor, and then you show it on PBS, and they take all the money, but you've made your film.
And who died?
Abby Hoffman. Abby Hoffman was a political dissident, or as he said, they're all over there. He was an activist.
Well, that certainly helps. Otherwise, I think back to one of my favorite parodies, The TV Set, where market research showed that suicide is depressing, and perhaps they could come up with a different scenario. So the fact that you overcame that, that's great.
Oh, well, I didn't die.
She
No.
didn't die. Didn't you notice? She's still here.
Really?
Oh, okay. So
No.
the thing is, did that help you get the money for the next one?
Not at all. No. Years went by, and I also work in theater and have done a myriad of things, including working at Miramax in a lowly position for Weinstein at one time. But I moved to London, and there's something called Channel 4, Late Night Channel 4, and they take risks on filmmakers. And I had a couple ideas, and they took the risks. And so we made films that were commissioned. We didn't make very much money, but everything was paid for, and I got to do my story the way I wanted, which is, it spoils you for something like Hollywood, which is very difficult to break into and
Well,
tell your story.
it's probably difficult to break into New York, too, if you're going to be a documentary filmmaker.
I suppose it is, but you give up a lot.
And
You really give up a lot.
And what was the story you wanted to tell that you got to do in London?
I told a story about women who have a history of being witches and being suffering from that fixation, and how the magical power is still very present in that society, and the Celtic sensibility, which I think Mr. Behr could attest to from Outlander. It's a very important part. Spirit's a very important part of life there. It's very interesting, different than here. So I told that story, and I also got to do magic on someone.
Well, I was going to say, it's alive and well. I spent a number of years in New England, and around Halloween, like in northern Connecticut, there was very much a Wiccan culture, and there was a huge old sycamore that you could drive down the road and see them all having their circles. And
Dancing naked. And
yeah, we don't see that so much in California, but out east, it's definitely there.
No, it's a little new ageier here, but there's a community, which is very interesting, a shaman community.
And what sort of magic did you do on someone?
I gave them confidence.
Oh.
Ooh.
Yep. I gave them confidence, and they took mine away, but it was an interesting exchange.
Well, what I want to know is that this documentary you're working on now, all about John Lennon, where did that idea come from?
that came from the same person who went through a mental transformative moment where he was getting messages from John Lennon and Jesus, but Jesus and John Lennon are often looked at in the same way as princes of peace. And I thought, this is really strange. Is this a phenomenon? And I started to explore it and found out there were other people, including a woman in Fargo who got musical messages and votes Republican. Figure that. And another person who actually thinks that he is Lennon and goes in and out of a Liverpool accent. So what does that mean, and why do people still want to have Lennon in their lives? And that's what I really want to look at, the Lennon-ness of...
Well, we're going to show a tiny little clip. It's just a piece that isn't finished. It's part of what you're putting together.
Okay.
So, Kurt, run that clip.
I lit a cigarette, and there you were, dancing in gentle swirls. Then you were gone, so I burned another one. All we can do is change the world. I met some friends, you should have been there. There's something missing without you. Now you're gone, I know it won't be very long before we'll find out what to do. All the things you said, I'd like to get inside your head, inside your mind.
So, Nancy, can you tell us where that clip came from?
That came from Andy Lee, who wrote that song, and we shot it for the film. Okay. And he wrote it for me, but I thought it sounded a lot like Lennon. That was at the height of his Lennon period.
Who's singing it? It sounds like Lennon.
Yeah, his name is Andy Lee.
Oh, so he wrote it and he sang it, and it's your face because you say there's Nancy. That was you.
Yeah, that's me remembering it, because some of the film is a memory to remember this part of my life and why I was and still have been stuck in it. And so then I go on to explore Lennon, and I find a lot of other people, I shouldn't use the word stuck, but are still really riveted, inspired, and want what he had to say as part of their lives.
Do you think that if John Lennon were born or coming about as an artist today, that he would have broken through and had the same impact on the world that he did?
I would hope so. I don't know.
The
world is very...
it's very different now.
It's painfully...
and I think it's more difficult for someone to break through and get heard.
Yeah, but I think when you have something so strong to say, and it's said in the right way, the time will open up and accept it. And I think that's what happened. That's what happened for the Beatles. They had so much to say musically, and it was the right time. And if he were to come now, if he would have another way to speak to the world, to this global horror that we all have to face every time we turn on the news, and speak to that, because that's what he was doing. He was really predicting so much in his music.
So not only do you do documentaries,
Yeah.
I fell in love with your blogs. I think you're a very funny writer, and you're sitting next to, well, he's not funny, but he's a writer.
We were laughing in the green room. Yeah.
Tell me, where did these ideas come from? Your head regurgitates the most amazing stories.
Yeah, I don't know. I try them out on my poodle, and she laughs, and I figure, okay, that's fine. It's when you sort of feel like an outsider, and you develop your own point of view, and you hope that you will find other people that relate to you. But if not, as you were saying, you have to be true to your school, and it has not put me in the softest, safest positions. But I don't know what you said, that thing from some Sam Peckinpah movie, but that was very good. You have to live with yourself. You have to live with, and so I find things very funny, absurdly funny, and
But you don't stop. I mean, it would be wonderful if you just keep making documentaries. But you're working on a musical.
yeah.
Where do you have the time to live your life?
What life? I only have a dog. Plenty of time. You collect your food stamps and then you walk your dog and you've got a lot of time left over. And I come to visit my aunt, who's really my cousin. And she was a terrific person.
It's interesting. I always wonder what makes people live a life that's not easy, but is fulfilling. I mean, how do we define what makes us happy? I have the feeling that you're a happy camper.
I always think I'm miserable. Just ask my therapist. But when I'm around other people who I find boring, and not anybody in this room, I think, wow, I am not that unhappy. I would like my life to be less stressful. I'd like to be able to finish my films, to find a really good editor who can do it quickly. But I like seeing, I wouldn't really want to change my head with anybody else's. I'd like to change my circumstances, but then I might not have my head. So it's hard to know where you can, and you can't become anybody else.
So where do the ideas come from? Where are they buried in Nancy Cohen's head?
There's a tomb in a small town in Pennsylvania, and that's where all the secrets were hidden. And I go back once or twice a year, and I have the key. I break in, and I see what still plays. That's, it's really the past, and how the past is incongruent with the present, and somehow that friction makes things. I mean, it's also, everything is so serendipitous if one is open to feeling it and allowing it to happen.
Exactly, and come in. One more question I wanted to ask you, because the thing is that I was really fascinated about all the stuff you do. So I was wondering if you could tell me the best way to describe Nancy Cohen.
The best way, okay. A writer who likes to direct but doesn't like to push people around, so that makes her that's not a good way. Let's see. Taurus with the moon in Libra.
Oh, that's why I love her.
That's going to apply to some people. I don't know. I was telling you, I go to funerals. I'm somebody who would rather go to funerals than weddings because I think people are more honest. And the last one I went to was that my cab was pulling up. It was for Jack Rollins, and Woody was waiting, and he got my cab. So these are the moments. This is who I am. I just try to let things happen around me.
Well, the thing that's interesting, Ira, we have a woman that did a documentary on witches, and you're working on Outlander, and there is, if not a witch, there's something in the stones. Would you call them witches in that opening scene?
Pretty much, yeah, you could say that.
Where are the stones now?
Where are they? The actual stones?
Yeah, where are the actual stones? Come on, tell me. This is my favorite show.
Around this fireplace.
The last I saw them, though they might have been moved, they were leaning up against the wall between stage B and 1, stage 1. Yeah, I know. We said that they should move them because people who walk around and are brought in take tours of the set, which not a lot of people get to do that. But the stones maybe should not be out there on display because it's like kind of ruins it a little bit. But the actual place was just outside of Inverness in northern Scotland, was where they filmed it.
So some of it was really true. I mean, even though this is a fantasy story.
Well, the history is true. And the history in season 2, it moves a little bit to the forefront because as we ended season 1 talking about trying to stop the Jacobite rebellion and ultimately the Battle of Culloden, which was the end of the Scottish way of life, the clan life when they lost to the British, and was not a pleasant place to be for a number of years.
I did admit that this was one of my guilty pleasures, and I was thrilled to know that it was picked up for the second season. What do those people really like? Okay, never mind. I don't want to know. I want to know about that scene you shot in the prison, which was so hard to watch, where the gorgeous, sexy Scotsman, Jamie, is stripped and I don't know how to say it.
Sodomized
Thank you. by
repeatedly.
by Mad Jack.
Yeah.
You wrote this.
Yes, but it was in the book, which was surprising when I read the book. Not kind of like the climax of a 700-page book that you're expecting, but it was told in flashback, and it did not get into quite like the dialogue. So all that had to kind of be created. Most of that, the writing, it was fine. I just tried to imagine if it was 2015 and we were trying to tell a story about a woman who was subject to that abuse. I wanted to make it as realistic and as unpleasant and as non-TV as we could make it. In terms of being on the set, we shot for 5 days in that prison set. I've never been at a more uncomfortable set in my life. The grips in Scotland are just as tough as the grips in Los Angeles. They were like, when is this going to be over? But every time I looked at someone, these tough guys were shaking their head and go, can we just get this done? The women, the hair and makeup women and costumes would be sitting at their monitors and they'd be weeping at times. I've never seen that on a set. And after, in between takes, sometimes I'd go to Sam, who plays Jamie, to talk to him. And there were times when I could see he was just in a space that I literally would veer away because I didn't want to, get into, I didn't want to interfere with whatever his process was. On the other hand, Tobias, who plays Blackjack, it was like, okay, cut. Okay, joking around, having it's like he was the only one on the set who wasn't traumatized. It was an interesting time.
The rapist.
Yeah. But
The rapist had a good time.
Yeah.
It was also
Sam's
interesting.
seeing my therapist now.
But it was also interesting that it was directed by a woman. We had a woman director. It just worked out that way, and that was kind of. It was an interesting perspective. Not that I want to go too deeply into that, because as well director, she was into getting her shot, and while he's being sodomized, can we shoot it through, the bars here because it looks good? I mean, she's a director, and directors have to do their gig, but I just felt that it just helped having, it was good to have a female presence on the set.
We're about out of time, but there's an interesting kind of theme amongst everything that Nancy's doing, Ira, that you've done, that I work with. I just got back from the Outdoor Retailer Show, where I met with a number of outdoor and adventure documentary filmmakers, and a common theme is that there's a lot of happiness when, depending on the person, but varying degrees of suffering. Like if everything's too simple, then it's not as pleasing as if there's
She should be the
suffering.
happiest person on the set.
Oh my goodness. Well, the Buddhists say we all suffer, and I think of myself as a Jew-boo, so I guess I'm suffering, and why not?
Do you have funding for your John Lennon documentary?
It's been self-funded, but we are going to do something called a Hatch Fund.
This is like a crowdfunding.
Yeah, we're going to do a crowdfunding, and I'm also working on Deep in the Deal, which is a much more extensive film about consciousness change, and we'll be doing something to finish that too. That's bringing Richie Havens back to the screen. Wow. A lot of the people died who were in the film because it takes so long to finish them, but somebody, it's good to hang on.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much. As always, please tune in to watch the repeats of the show on realhollywoodlive.com. Join us next Tuesday on ubnradio.com channel 1.
I don't even know who's coming.
I guess they'll have to tune in and find out.
I really run a very loose ship.
Yeah, but
somebody's going to be here. We're doing writers. I mean, I'm obsessed with guys. I'm so obsessed with writers. So we have writers again. We have Adam Simon, and Ben Berkowitz. I picked them up too.
Two Catholic boys.
Yeah. Because I really meant this in the beginning. Without the word, we have nothing in this business. So I want to thank you for joining us. I'm so glad
Thank you.
you're back. And guys, that's a wrap.
Conundrum has been turning winemaking on its head for 25 years. Conundrum White is the original white wine blend from California. Pair this exotic, versatile wine with everything from Asian cuisine to tacos. Conundrum Red is rich, full-flavored, and balanced, the perfect complement to dishes like pasta pomodoro, fajitas, and barbecue. Drink it slightly chilled, perfect for summer. You'll find Conundrum Red and White wines at your favorite restaurants, wine shops, or supermarket. Go to WagnerFamilyOfWine.com. Again, that's WagnerFamilyOfWine.com. Find your wine, find your adventure.
Nearly famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches is Reba Merrill's intriguing look at hidden Hollywood. Find out what movie stars are really like in this behind-the-scenes Hollywood tell-all. The story of Reba's extraordinary life interwoven with an insider's look at achieving fame and success in the entertainment industry. A must-read. Buy Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches at RebaMerrill.com, Amazon.com, or ask for it at fine bookstores. Nearly Famous Tales from the Hollywood Trenches. You'll love it.
Barkeeper in Silver Lake has the finest cocktail shakers and vintage glassware and barware from the mid-century to new. And let's not forget about Barkeeper's unique spirits, 150 different kinds of bitters, and their unique gifts. In fact, Barkeeper provided a lot of the vintage barware for Mad Men. BarkeeperSilverLake.com. Don't wait to visit their store or their website at BarkeeperSilverLake.com. It's your very own Barkeeper catalog for unique gifts.
Real Hollywood Live with Ben and Reba.